Have you ever thought, wow, I painted my miniature, I am all done, finally all the work pays off, but something is missing? The base. Have you ever felt overwhelmed when starting painting the bases for your miniatures? Yup, same. Been there, done that. And that's why I started this series, Painting for Beginners from a Beginner. Because if I can do it, you can do it. My name is Kiddo and I have just recently started miniature painting. And I like to be creative and try out new things, like a lot. And today we're going to create 4 bases that look super cool and are easy to make. A lava base, a winter base, a sewer base, and a tiles and roses base. And this is a good one, so stay tuned for the end of the video. This is already part 2 of this series, Painting for Beginners from a Beginner, where I painted a Martian base, an underwater base, a sorcery base, and a wasteland base. So if you haven't seen that video, you can click here and watch it to get even more inspiration. This series is for you, for us, and everybody who started miniature painting recently. This is a judgmental-free zone where I share my beginner creations, hoping you find them inspiring. So without further ado, let's get cooking. We are starting off with a lava base. This base was highly recommended by you and it is an amazing base for salamanders, fire slayers, but also works for every other faction out there. And always remember, it's your mini and you can do whatever the fuck you want with them. And here's what you're gonna need. A base, duh, cork, glue, a sharp knife, black primer, the colors white, dark red, orange, and yellow, optional, a yellow wash, and also optional, AK interactive volcanic earth and terrain pebbles. So first of all, you grab your base and the plan is to add some cork on top to create these cool volcanic rocks. Cork is literally perfect for basing and it is pretty cheap and super easy to work with. Quick fun fact, I did not have cork at home, as usual. And do you remember this children's TV show where they said, oh yeah, this project is super easy. You can do it with all the products you have at home. And the first step was crafting glue. And you were like, Mom! So I'm used to getting creative, even though I am an adult now and I can just buy things. But I still forget to buy all that shit that I need. So because I didn't have cork at home, I just used IKEA coasters. I had in my cupboard. Works perfectly fine, okay? So I grabbed my coasters and broke some pieces off and tried to figure out which piece could fit the base in the best way. And after deciding the angles, I grabbed my glue and glued them down to the base. Use a super glue for this, because normal plastic glue will not work here. After letting it dry for some minutes, I cut off the edges with a sharp knife to make it as clean as possible. After I was happy with the result, I also scratched off a little bit of the surface, as we want the cork to look like super crusty, crumbly volcanic rocks, right? That's the result of the first step, and this is how the base looked all primed in beautiful chaos black. You can see that I left some spots open on the base, where I'm going to place a lava river, and that's what we're gonna do now. To make the paint pop more, I added a white to the bottom of the base. And now we are starting to create a lava river by working our way from the outer edges to the inside of the base, and we are starting to paint the river with a deep dark red, and we will go lighter with each color until we have reached the middle of the base. I did not wait for the paint to dry and wet blended the red with the next color, a deep rich orange. Further on, I'm filling in the river with a beautiful yellow. As usual, you can find all the products that I used in the description box below. Last but not least, I freehanded a white line in the middle of the lava river to mark the hottest spots and covered it with a yellow wash. I added some orange paint to the edges of the volcanic rocks to make it seem like the light is reflecting. For the final touches, I added AK volcanic earth, which is a deep brown, almost blackish kind of terrain mass that dries beautifully and resembles exactly the kind of ground we want to create. I topped it off with a pinch of terrain pebbles, and there you go. We created a super easy and amazing lava base. Perfect for your fiery miniatures. Yay! And if you would like to see the tutorial in written form, you can always check out my Patreon. I have uploaded the color recipe for the lava base and other creations on there. And the best thing about this, guys, is it is for free as usual. So check it out in the description box below. Okay, so after we created the hottest base in town, we need to cool off a bit, right? I mean, it's summer and there is a heat wave currently all over Europe, so that calls for a chilly winter base. And for this base, you'll need a base, cork, glue, dark blue, light blue, and white paint, Citadel Technical Aggrelan Badland, the secret sauce, clear resin, and some terrain pebbles, also black paint to clean up the edges of the base. So sometimes when I start something new, I scribble down ideas so I can visualize them better. It really helps me sometimes. Maybe try it out, but this is completely optional. With this base, I tried something new. As this is going to be a winter base scheme, I wanted to use the fact that an oily, not primed base shows different results than a primed base for my advantage. As the paint is not sticking perfectly to one spot, it creates all these little geometrical shapes. Do you see them? Which resembles kind of little snowflakes or ice. I was pleasantly surprised by how well it worked and just kept going. I added a light blue paint on top and wet blended with white. The more chaotic, the better. I added the darker blue onto some of the darker areas and wet blended it as well. And I left it as you can see it here because I really liked how the shapes on the base turned out. Now comes the super fun part. At first, I was kind of afraid to use resin because I haven't seen it in a lot of beginner tutorials. But first of all, I believe in you, okay? Again, I'm a beginner painter and I'm trying out all these things, and if I can do it, you can do it. And second of all, if you can mix a tequila sunrise in the backyard of your friend's house during a hot summer night at the pool, you can use resin, trust me. Mixing a cocktail is a lot harder than this, so don't be afraid. I used this super cheap resin from Amazon, which you can buy for like 14 bucks and contains the resin A and the hardener B. There are also versions that are already pre-mixed. For example, some of the AK stuff. You can totally use this. I just got this whenever buying this cheap shit from Amazon. So there are a lot of options and I'm gonna pin them down in the description box below. And now brace yourself for the super difficult recipe. You pour 1 part resin and add 1 part hardener. And that's it. So in this case, I added 5 milliliter A plus 5 milliliter B, and you can use even less for a small base like this, as we only want to cover the surface of the base with it. Take a super old brush and glaze the surface of the base with it. Easy. Let it dry, and this is the result. Super clear, sparkly, icy winter base. Yay! To make it even more realistic, I used a file to scratch the surface a little bit so it looks like scratched ice. Last but not least, I added some technical Aggrelan Badlands, as this technical dries and leaves super nice cracked earth, painted it white and added some terrain pebble on top, and 3, 2, 1, done! We created a super cool and easy winter base. The next base we're going to do is one of my favorites for the sheer reason that it's super fitting for Craven, and I love my little rat boys. This one is going to be a sewer base. And for this one, you will need a base, cork, or our beloved IKEA coasters, glue, some air drying putty, a texture roller, a straw, black primer, all green paints, all in the description below, the secret sauce, resin, that we have been using for the winter base before. Let's start creating the sewer base. I broke a little bit of cork again, placed it onto the base and cut off the edges to make it look as clean as possible. Then I took air drying putty and placed it on top of the cork. I smoothed it out with my hands until I was left with this super clean surface, which is perfectly suited to create some texture with a texture roller. I did not have one, so I used a dry brush palette. It did work, but I really recommend using a texture roller for this one. I mean, logically, the texture is inverted, obviously, but in my case, I was happy with it, but you know, just use a texture roller. I cut up a piece of straw and pressed it into the side of the base. I let it dry and primed it in Chaos Black. After dry brushing the top white, I added a necrosis wash and some more disgusting looking green tones on top. I used 2 thin coats battle mod wash to paint the creases, zombie green and necrosis wash for the surface. Afterwards I painted the bottom of the base white and wet blended some AK fluorescent green and AK light green. Last but not least, the fun part. Covering the base in plastic wrap and a lot of hot glue. Now we can pour the resin, 2 drops of AK fluorescent green, and off we go. After 12 hours of drying time, this is what our sewer base looked like. Yay! Perfect for the Skaven boys! And again, if you want the color recipe in written form, you can check out my Patreon because I upload all my color recipes for my bases for free. Okay, this is the last base we're covering today, and I shit you not, this is one of my absolute favorites. I call it Tiles and Roses, and it is perfect for Adepta Sororitas miniatures. And I'm gonna show you how to do it. Let's go. For the Tiles and Roses base, you'll need a base, glue, air drying putty, a sharp knife, a ruler or something similar, terrain pebbles, the colors dark gray, light gray, white, dark red, light red, and orange. So, the focal point of this base is air drying putty. Air drying putty is perfect to create and shape objects, and this is exactly what we're gonna do today. So I grabbed my putty and formed a big ball out of it. I flattened it out on my desk and covered my base with it. I flipped the base over and cut out the axis putty, and that's what we're left with. I wanted to create a cool pattern for the base, so I chose to divide the surface into a flat marble kind of situation that is surrounded by cobblestones. You will see in a sec. So I grabbed a ruler because I wanted the design to be neat for once and cut out the axis putty. So now we have our marble flat tile situation going on, and all we need is some cobblestones, so off we go. I cut up small pieces from the leftover putty and shaped small stones with it. When the edges were too sharp, I simply smoothed them out with the tips of my fingers. I decided to go for this design and pattern, and when I was happy with the placement of the stones, I glued them down to the base. Afterwards, I wanted to go for a symmetrical pattern on the flat tile surface, so I grabbed the ruler and drew some lines and rows on top. I added some glue and basing terrain in between to fill in the gaps and make it look more realistic. And now it's time to paint. I grabbed some gray color, in this case 2 thin coats Dungeon Stones Gray, and added everything to the dried putty. Quick tip, let the putty dry completely and you're pretty much good to go. I didn't prime everything again because I'm lazy, and it worked perfectly fine for me. I added some lighter gray on top, and I also used different shades of greenish and bluish tints to give the stones a more random appeal. For that I used 2 thin coats Zombie Green and Necrosis Green wash. I also did some edge highlighting with white, added a wash, and this was a mixture between black and dark blue, and let it dry completely. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived at my absolute favorite part, creating this base. And what makes this base so fun and special? The roses! Yeah! And again, this is a beginner tutorial and I really want to make sure everybody can join in on the fun. So I'm going to show you exactly what I did and convince you it is in fact super easy to make roses from putty. So I grabbed a piece of putty and just smashed it with my hands, so I was left with a flat surface. And the only thing you need to do is to roll the putty in your fingers to this little putty sausage, and boom, you have the core of a rose. Easy! And now we simply build up the rose petals on top, and I did the exact same thing. Flattened out a piece of putty, and this time I did not roll it, I just applied it to the core and build it up from here like this. And here we go, we have a beautiful rose, and now it's time for the paint. I started with a dark red and build up from here, going to a lighter color, finishing up with an orange and some sweet little white dots on top. And there we go. After deciding for a placement, which took me about 20 minutes of back and forth, I glued down the roses and here we have it. We created a super cool and easy tiles and roses base for your Adeptosauridas or for Space Marines, it doesn't matter. I love this base and I really hope you love her too. And there we go, we created 4 super cool bases with minimal effort that are super easy to make, but look really cool. And always remember, don't be disencouraged by all the stuff you see online. This is a hobby still, and the most important thing is that you have fun, okay? So this should motivate you to just try out things and sometimes do it differently than others do it. That is totally okay if it works for you. So I really hope you had fun watching this video. I really hope you got inspired. And if you liked this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments below what kind of bases or beginner projects you would like to see next. See you in the next episode of Painting for Beginners from a Beginner, where we learn things the chaotic way. Stay tuned, stay chaotic, and bye! Tschüss, auf Wiedersehen!